The city sparkled below like a carpet of fallen stars as Camila Torres pressed her face against the window of the hired car. Her stomach twisted with nervous energy. The vehicle climbed higher into the hills where Manhattan's elite made their homes, each mansion more impressive than the last. "Stop fidgeting." Bianca Montgomery laughed from beside her. "You look absolutely perfect tonight." Camila glanced down at the emerald green dress Bianca had insisted she borrow. The silk fabric felt foreign against her skin, so different from her usual jeans and sweaters. She worked a part-time jobs while completing her graduate degree in social work, and events like this existed in a world she only glimpsed from afar. "These people spend more on their shoes than I make in 3 months," Camila whispered. "I feel like an imposter." Bianca squeezed her hand firmly. "You belong anywhere I say you belong. My parents specifically wanted to meet you. They've heard all about the brilliant woman who helps me stay grounded at Columbia." The Montgomery estate rose before them like something from a dream. Glass and steel merged with classical architecture, creating a structure that seemed to float above the city. Warm light poured from floor-to-ceiling windows. The sound of a string quartet drifted through the evening air as elegantly dressed. Guests moved up the wide stone steps. Inside, Camila's breath caught in her throat. A massive crystal chandelier dominated the entrance hall, casting rainbow patterns across marble floors. Servers in crisp uniforms circulated with champagne and delicate appetizers. Every surface gleamed with careful attention. Every detail screamed old money and refined taste. "Bianca, darling." A woman in a stunning navy gown approached them. Patricia Montgomery carried herself with effortless grace, her silver jewelry catching the light as she embraced her daughter. "Mother, this is Camila Torres. My roommate and the person who keeps me sane during finals week." Patricia's smile was warm and genuine as she took Camila's hand. "It's wonderful to finally meet you. Bianca speaks so highly of your academic work. We're thrilled you could join us tonight. Thank you for having me, Mrs. Montgomery. Your home is breathtaking. Please call me Patricia. Come, let me introduce you to my husband." Richard Montgomery stood near the grand piano, deep in conversation with several distinguished-looking men. When Patricia called him over, he excused himself with practiced ease. "So, you're the young woman who convinced our daughter that community service matters more than country club memberships?" he said with a knowing smile. "I appreciate that more than you know." They chatted easily for several minutes. Despite their obvious wealth, the Montgomerys seemed genuinely interested in Camila's background and her plans to work in child advocacy after graduation. Their warmth helped ease her anxiety slightly. "I thought Ethan was supposed to be here tonight," Patricia said. Glancing toward the entrance, something shifted in Bianca's expression. Her jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. "Is he actually coming? I assumed he'd be too busy with his important business dealings." "He flew in from Singapore yesterday," Richard replied. "First time home in over a year? We wanted the whole family together for the foundation gala." Bianca rarely mentioned her older brother. When she did, her tone carried a sharp edge that suggested complicated history. Camila knew only the basics. Ethan worked in international tech investment, traveled constantly, and apparently he had a talent for disappointing his sister. "There he is now," Patricia said, her face brightening. Camila turned toward the entrance and felt the world tilt sideways. Ethan Montgomery stood in the doorway like he'd stepped out of a magazine spread. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair that fell just slightly over his forehead. His tailored charcoal suit fit perfectly across broad shoulders. But what caught Camila's attention wasn't his obvious good looks or expensive clothes. It was the way he carried himself. Confident without arrogance, present and observant, taking in everything with sharp, intelligent eyes. When those eyes found hers across the crowded room, Camila felt electricity shoot through her entire body. The connection was instant and undeniable. Her pulse quickened. Her palms grew damp. The champagne glass in her hand suddenly felt too heavy. Everything else faded away, like someone had turned down the volume on the rest of the world. Ethan's lips curved into a slow smile. He began moving through the crowd toward them, each step deliberate and purposeful. Camila tried to compose herself. This was Bianca's brother. She needed to act normal, friendly, professional. Ethan, Patricia called out warmly. Come meet Bianca's friend. Close he was even more striking. His eyes were a deep brown, almost black in the dim lighting, and they held hers with an intensity that made her knees weak. It was Camila Torres, she managed. Extending her hand, Ethan Montgomery. Oh. His voice was deep and smooth. When his fingers closed around hers, warmth spread up her arm. The pleasure is entirely mine. The handshake lasted a moment longer than necessary. Neither of them seemed able to let go first. Ethan has been running our Southeast Asian operations, Richard explained, building partnerships with tech companies in Singapore and Jakarta. That must be fascinating work, Camila said, trying to sound casual despite her racing heart. It has its moments, Ethan replied, his gaze never leaving her face. But there's something to be said for coming home, especially when home holds such unexpected surprises. The comment was perfectly polite on the surface, but the way he said it, the heat in his dark eyes made Camila's stomach flip. Bianca stepped closer to Camila, her posture defensive. Ethan is always full of surprises. We barely hear from him for months, then he shows up acting like no time has passed. There was definite tension in her voice. Ethan's expression tightened slightly, but he kept his tone light. Guilty as charged. Though I'm planning to stay in New York for a while this time. Reconnect with family and friends. His eyes found Camila's again as he said the last part. The unspoken words hung in the air between them. Dinner was announced shortly after, giving Camila a reprieve from the charged atmosphere. The dining room could easily seat 50 people. Crystal and silver gleamed on white tablecloths. Camila found herself seated directly across from Ethan at the Montgomery family table. Throughout the meal, she was hyper-aware of his presence. When he laughed at something his father said, the sound made her heart skip. When he reached for his wine glass, she noticed the strength in his hands. When he loosened his tie slightly, she had to force herself to look away. The foundation does incredible work, Camila commented during a brief lull in conversation. I read about the scholarship program for underprivileged students. That must change so many lives. It's the part of our family business I'm most proud of, Ethan said, leaning forward slightly. Money means nothing if you don't use it to make a difference. Do you have plans to work in nonprofit after graduation? Yes, actually. Child advocacy and family services. I want to help kids who don't have anyone fighting for them. Ethan's expression grew thoughtful. That takes real courage. Facing difficult situations, seeing things most people turn away from. Not everyone has that kind of strength. The sincerity in his voice surprised her. She'd expected polite interest at best. But he seemed genuinely impressed. They talked throughout dinner about everything from education reform to travel to books. Ethan had visited places Camila had only seen in documentaries, but he spoke about them with real enthusiasm. Not the bored superiority she expected from someone of his background. He asked about her family, her studies, her dreams, and he listened to every answer with complete attention. Your parents own a restaurant? Ethan asked. What kind of food? Traditional Colombian cuisine. My grandmother's recipes. It's small, just a neighborhood place in Queens, but it's everything to them. Pride filled Camila's voice. They work 16-hour days, but they're building something meaningful. Something that's theirs. It's admirable. Building something from nothing takes real dedication and vision. The respect in his tone was unmistakable. I'd love to try it sometime. As the evening progressed, Camila found herself relaxing despite the opulent surroundings. Ethan made her feel like she belonged here, like her perspective added value to the conversation. But she couldn't forget who he was. Bianca's older brother, a man from a completely different world. Someone she had absolutely no business being attracted to. After dinner, guests moved to the terrace for cocktails and dancing. The view of Manhattan at night was spectacular. City lights stretched to the horizon like a sea of stars. Camila stood at the railing, trying to process everything she was feeling. Quite a view, Ethan's voice came from beside her. She hadn't heard him approach. But somehow, she'd known he would find her. It's incredible. I could stare at it for hours. I used to come out here when I was younger. Whenever family expectations felt overwhelming, I'd escape to this terrace and just breathe. He moved closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something clean and masculine that made her head spin. Does that happen often? The overwhelming expectations? More than I'd like to admit. There's a lot of pressure that comes with being in Montgomery. Expectations about how you'll spend your life, who you'll marry, what kind of person you're supposed to become. Vulnerability crept into his voice. Sometimes it feels like my life was decided before I was born. The honesty surprised her. This was different from the confident man she'd observed all evening. That sounds incredibly lonely, it can be. He turned to face her fully, which is why meeting someone like you tonight feels so refreshing. Like me? Camila's voice came out barely above a whisper. Someone real. Someone who sees the world with fresh eyes instead of calculating every angle. Someone who cares about making a difference instead of making connections. Ethan's hand came up, his fingers barely grazing her cheek. Someone who makes me forget about expectations and obligations and just feel alive. Camila's breath caught in her throat. Every rational thought told her to step back, to create distance, to remember that this was dangerous. Instead, she found herself leaning into his touch. Ethan, she started to say. I know, he interrupted softly. I know this is complicated. I know you're Bianca's best friend. I know we just met a few hours ago. But I can't pretend I don't feel this pull between us. What pull? But she felt it too. The magnetic force drawing them together. The way conversation flowed effortlessly. The sense that something significant was happening. Ethan stepped closer until they were inches apart. The way you've been in my thoughts since the moment I saw you, the way everything feels different when you're near, the way I want to know everything about you. Camila's heart hammered against her ribs. She could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes now, could feel the heat radiating from his body. We can't. Bianca is my best friend. This would hurt her. Or maybe some things are worth the complication, Ethan said quietly. He leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away, time to say no, time to remember all the reasons this was a terrible idea. Camila knew she should. Knew this was crossing a line that could never be uncrossed. Instead, she rose up on her toes and closed the distance between them. The kiss was gentle at first. Tentative, testing. Then Camila's hands found their way to his chest, and Ethan pulled her closer. The kiss deepened with a hunger that surprised them both. The world fell away completely. There was only this moment, this connection, this perfect, impossible feeling. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Camila, Ethan murmured, his forehead resting against hers. Before Ethan could speak, a sharp voice cut through the night air. What the hell is going on out here? They sprang apart like they'd been burned. Bianca stood in the terrace doorway, her face cycling through confusion, shock, and something much darker. Bianca, Camila started, her voice shaking. I can explain. Can you? Bianca's voice was ice cold. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like my supposed best friend is making out with my brother at my parents' gala. Guilt and shame flooded through Camila. It's not what you think, really. Because what I think is that you, Bianca, pointed at Ethan, swooped in the second you got back, and targeted my friend. Just like you always do, taking whatever interests you without thinking about anyone else. That's not fair, Bianca, Ethan said, though his jaw was tight with tension. Fair? Bianca laughed bitterly. What's not fair is using my friend for whatever game you're playing. What's not fair is betraying 3 years of friendship for one night. Tears burned behind Camila's eyes. This was exactly what she'd feared. Bianca, please, let me explain. It just happened. I didn't plan this. Things like this don't just happen, Camila, not unless you let them happen. Bianca's gaze cut between them both. I thought I could trust you, both of you. She turned and walked back into the house, her heels clicking sharply against the stone terrace. The door closed behind her with a finality that echoed in Camila's chest. Heavy silence settled over them. The magic of moments before had evaporated completely, leaving only guilt and regret. I should go, Camila said finally, moving toward the door. Camila, wait. Ethan caught her arm gently. Don't let this end like this. How else can it end? She pulled away from his touch, though it hurt to do so. Bianca is my best friend. Was my best friend. I just destroyed the most important friendship in my life for one kiss. It was more than one kiss and you know it. Camila looked into his dark eyes and felt her resolve wavering. He was right. What happened between them went deeper than physical attraction. The connection was real and powerful and terrifying. But it was also impossible. I have to go, she said firmly. This was a mistake. A beautiful mistake, Ethan replied quietly. But still a mistake, Camila. She paused at the door but didn't turn around. This isn't over, Ethan said. What we felt tonight doesn't disappear because it's inconvenient. Camila closed her eyes, fighting back tears. It has to be over. Some things are more important than what we want. She walked through the house in a daze, past the crystal chandeliers and marble floors that had enchanted her earlier. Now they just reminded her of the impossible distance between her world and Ethan's. The taxi ride back to Queens passed in a blur. Camila stared out the window, replaying every moment. The way Ethan had looked at her, the electricity when they touched, the perfection of that kiss, and the devastation on Bianca's face when she found them. By the time she reached her small apartment, Camila had made her decision. She would apologize to Bianca, beg for forgiveness if necessary, and she would stay as far away from Ethan Montgomery as possible, no matter how much it hurt, because some lines, once crossed, changed everything forever. And tonight, Camila Torres had learned that lesson in the most painful way possible. 5 days passed without a word from Bianca. Camila had called repeatedly, sent dozens of text messages, even tried emailing. All went unanswered. The silence felt like a physical weight crushing her chest, making it hard to breathe. She threw herself into work, picking up extra tutoring shifts and spending long hours at the campus library. Anything to keep her mind occupied. But quiet moments brought the memories flooding back. Ethan's dark eyes, the warmth of his touch, the way her name sounded on his lips. And always, the look of betrayal on Bianca's face. Camila was organizing files at the student services office when her phone buzzed with an unknown number. Hello? Camila, it's Ethan. Just hearing his voice sent electricity through her system. She gripped the phone tighter, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. How did you get my number? I have resources. There was a slight smile in his voice. Can we meet? I need to see you. No. The answer came out sharper than she intended. I mean, we agreed this was over. You decided it was over. I never agreed to anything. His tone grew more serious. Have you talked to Bianca? The question hit like a punch to the gut. No, she won't answer my calls or texts. 5 days of friendship just gone. Like I never mattered to her at all. I'm sorry. I know how much she means to you. The gentleness in his voice almost broke her. Then you understand why we can't see each other. Actually, I understand why we need to see each other. To talk about this properly? To figure out what happens next? There's nothing to figure out, Camila insisted, though her resolve was already crumbling. What happened was a mistake. I need to focus on repairing my friendship with Bianca. Was it a mistake? Ethan's voice dropped lower. Because I've thought about nothing else for 5 days. About the way you felt in my arms. About our conversation. About how right everything seemed before Bianca walked out. Camila closed her eyes, fighting the wave of longing that washed over her. It doesn't matter how it felt. What matters is that I hurt my best friend. You followed your heart for one honest moment. That's not betrayal. A student approached needing help, giving Camila a moment to compose herself. But Ethan was still on the line when she returned. I have to go, she said. Have dinner with me tonight. Just dinner. Let me apologize properly for putting you in this situation. Let's talk about this like adults instead of pretending it never happened. Every instinct told her to refuse, to delete his number, to run as far away as possible. But the loneliness of the past 5 days had been crushing. And despite everything, she desperately wanted to see him again. One dinner, she said finally. Just to talk, nothing else. Oh, nothing else, Ethan agreed. Oh, hell. Pick you up at 7. Camila spent the rest of the day questioning her decision. By the time she got home to change, she'd changed her mind a dozen times. She was reaching for her phone to cancel. When a knock came at her door, Ethan stood in the hallway holding a bouquet of white lilies. He wore dark jeans and a black sweater that made his eyes look even darker. more casual than at the gala, but no less striking. "You look beautiful," he said simply. Camila had changed into a simple burgundy dress, nothing fancy, but the way Ethan looked at her made her feel like the most captivating woman alive. "Thank you." She accepted the flowers, trying to ignore how her hands trembled. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere we can talk privately." He led her to a black car waiting outside. The driver held the door as they settled into the back seat. Enclosed space felt intimate, charged with unspoken tension. They drove along the Hudson River to a small Italian restaurant tucked away from the main streets. Candlelight flickered on white tablecloths. The scent of fresh bread and herbs filled the air. It was cozy and romantic, exactly the kind of place that made Camila's heart race. "This is lovely," she said as they were seated at a corner table. "I wanted somewhere we could actually hear each other think." Ethan ordered wine without looking at the menu, clearly familiar with the place. After the server left, awkward silence settled between them. Camila fidgeted with her napkin, unsure where to begin. "Thank you for coming tonight," Ethan said finally. "I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't. About 15 different times? What changed your mind?" Camila considered the question carefully. "Honestly, I've been miserable for 5 days. Not just because of losing Bianca's friendship, but because I kept thinking about you, about us, about what might have happened if she hadn't found us. And what do you think might have happened?" Heat flooded Camila's cheeks. "I think we both know the answer to that." Ethan reached across the table, covering her hand with his. The familiar electricity sparked immediately. "Camila, I need you to understand something. What I felt that night, what I'm feeling right now, this isn't casual for me. I don't pursue women lightly, especially not friends of my sister. Then why are you doing this?" "Because I've never felt anything like this before." His thumb traced circles on her knuckles. "I've dated plenty of women. Beautiful women, successful women, women my parents would approve of. But I've never met anyone who made me forget the rest of the world existed." Camila's heart hammered against her ribs. "Ethan, I know it's complicated. I know the timing is terrible. But walking away from this without exploring it would be the biggest regret of my life." The server returned with their wine, giving Camila a moment to process his words. Everything rational told her to end this now, to walk away before she fell any deeper. "What about Bianca?" she asked quietly. "She's your sister, my best friend. How do we get past that?" Ethan sighed heavily. "Bianca and I have always had a complicated relationship. We love each other, but we've never been close. I think she resents me for leaving, for choosing my career over family obligations. And I've been guilty of being absent, of not making enough effort." "She's not wrong to feel hurt," Camila said. "You did leave, and now you're back and everything's changing.
I know.
But that doesn't mean what we feel is wrong." Their food arrived, but neither had much appetite. The conversation continued through dinner, touching on everything from their childhoods to their dreams for the future. Ethan spoke about growing up under constant pressure to be perfect. The expectations to take over the family business, to marry the right person, to maintain the Montgomery legacy. "I ran away to Singapore, partly to escape all that," he admitted. "But lately I've been realizing that running doesn't solve anything. It just postpones the inevitable." Camila shared her own struggles. Growing up as the daughter of immigrants, feeling caught between two worlds. The pressure to succeed, to justify her parents' sacrifices, to prove she belonged in spaces where people looked at her differently. "Sometimes I feel like an imposter," she confessed. "Like I'm pretending to be someone I'm not." "You're not an imposter. You're brilliant and hardworking, and you've earned everything you have." Ethan's conviction was absolute. "Anyone who makes you feel otherwise is wrong." After dinner, they walked along the river. The city lights reflected on the water like scattered jewels. Ethan draped his jacket around Camila's shoulders when she shivered in the cool night air. "Thank you for tonight," Camila said as they paused at a scenic overlook. "For dinner, for conversation, for making me feel less alone with all of this. You don't have to be alone with it." Ethan turned to face her, his hand settling gently on her waist. "We can figure this out together." Camila looked up into his eyes, seeing her own longing reflected there. The smart thing would be to say goodnight and go home, to end this before it went any further instead. She rose up on her toes and kissed him. This kiss was different from the one at the gala. Deeper, more desperate, filled with 5 days of suppressed longing. Ethan's arms tightened around her, pulling her against his chest. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "Come home with me," Ethan whispered against her forehead. Every nerve in Camila's body screamed yes. She wanted nothing more than to lose herself in his arms, to stop thinking and just feel. But the rational part of her mind reasserted itself. "I can't," she said reluctantly, pulling back. "Not yet. There's too much unresolved." Disappointment flickered across Ethan's features, but he nodded. "I understand. But Camila, this isn't going away. What we feel isn't going to disappear because it's inconvenient." "I know." She stepped back further, immediately missing his warmth. "I need time to think. To figure out how to approach Bianca. To decide if I'm brave enough for this. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready." The drive back to her apartment was quiet, both lost in their own thoughts. Ethan walked her to her door like a gentleman. Though the tension between them crackled with unspoken desire. "Good night, Camila," he said softly, pressing a gentle kiss to her cheek. "Good night." She watched from her window as his car disappeared into the night, then collapsed onto her couch. She was falling for Ethan Montgomery. Falling hard and fast for a man who represented everything she'd never thought she wanted. Her phone buzzed with a text message. For one heart-stopping moment, she hoped it might be Bianca finally responding. Instead, it was Ethan. "Thank you for tonight. Sweet dreams, beautiful." Camila stared at the message, her heart racing. Tomorrow, she would have to make a choice. Stay safe and walk away, or take a leap of faith into the unknown. But for tonight, she let herself remember the feel of his arms around her, the taste of his kiss, the promise in his dark eyes. The next morning, Camila made a decision. She couldn't move forward with Ethan without at least trying to explain things to Bianca. She needed her friend to understand that this wasn't calculated or cruel. It was just two people who connected unexpectedly. She took the subway to the Montgomery estate, her stomach churning with anxiety. The mansion looked different in daylight, less magical and more intimidating. The housekeeper answered the door, her expression carefully neutral. "Miss Torres. Miss Bianca isn't receiving visitors." "Please," Camila said desperately. "Just 5 minutes. I need to talk to her." Before the housekeeper could respond, Bianca appeared at the top of the stairs. She looked tired, her eyes red from crying. "It's fine, Helen. Let her in." Camila followed Bianca to a sitting room overlooking the gardens. Neither sat down. They stood facing each other like adversaries instead of friends. "I'm so sorry," Camila began. "I never meant to hurt you, but you did." Bianca's voice was flat. "You kissed my brother at my parents' party. How did you think I would feel? I know there's no excuse. But Bianca, it wasn't planned. We just connected. It happened so fast, that's supposed to make it better." Bianca's eyes flashed with anger. "That you couldn't control yourself for one night? That's not fair." "Fair." Bianca laughed bitterly. "Nothing about this is fair. Do you know how many times Ethan has done this? Swept in, charmed someone in my life, then disappeared when things got complicated. He did it with my high school best friend, with my college roommate before you, even with my cousin. He takes what he wants and leaves everyone else to deal with the aftermath." The revelation hit Camila like cold water. "I didn't know." "Of course you didn't. Because Ethan only shows people what he wants them to see." Bianca's voice cracked. "And now he's doing it to you, and you're falling for it just like everyone else." "It's not like that," Camila insisted, though doubt crept in. "What we have is real. It's what they all thought. Until he got bored, or his work called him back overseas, or the next interesting person caught his attention." Bianca wiped her eyes roughly. "I care about you, Camila. You're the best friend I've ever had. I don't want to see you get hurt. So this is about protecting me? Partly. But it's also about being tired of Ethan treating people like temporary distractions." Bianca finally sat down, her shoulders slumping. "And it's about feeling betrayed. You know how complicated my relationship with my brother is. You know all the reasons I keep him at a distance, and you still chose him over our friendship. Guilt washed over Camila again. I never wanted to choose. I just wanted to understand what this feeling was, and do you understand it? Camila sat down across from her. I think I'm falling for him, Bianca. And I know that's not what you want to hear. I know it complicates everything. But I can't just turn off my feelings. Silence stretched between them. Outside, birds sang in the garden. Inside, the weight of broken trust hung heavy. I need time, Bianca said finally. I can't just pretend this doesn't hurt, that everything's fine. I understand. Take all the time you need. But Camila. Bianca looked at her seriously. Be careful. Ethan is charming and thoughtful when he wants to be. But he's also someone who runs when things get real. Don't give up everything for someone who might not stay. The warning stayed with Camila as she left the mansion. Was Bianca right? Was she just another temporary distraction for Ethan? Or was what they had different, deeper, worth the risk? 2 weeks passed in a strange limbo. Camila and Ethan continued seeing each other, meeting for coffee, taking long walks, talking for hours about everything and nothing. The connection between them only grew stronger. But Bianca's words haunted Camila constantly. Tell me about the women Bianca mentioned, Camila said one evening, as they sat in a quiet park. Ethan's expression grew guarded. What did she say? That you have a pattern? Sweeping in, charming people close to her, then disappearing. He was quiet for a long moment. She's not entirely wrong. I did date her friend Lauren years ago. It ended badly when I moved to London, and I went out with her roommate Jessica a few times, but that was casual. It's nothing serious. And her cousin? That was a misunderstanding. We went to dinner once. Bianca made more of it than it was. Ethan took Camila's hand, but I understand why she's protective. I haven't been the most reliable brother. I've prioritized my career over family. I've let people down. How do I know this is different? Camila asked quietly. How do I know I'm not just another temporary distraction? Ethan cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to meet his eyes. Because I've never felt like this before. Because I'm making changes in my life to stay in New York. Because I'm willing to fight for this. For us, even when it's hard. What kind of changes? Stepping back from the Singapore office, transitioning to a role here in New York that requires less travel. I've already started the process. Mila's eyes widened. When did you decide this? The night of the gala? After I met you, I realized I was tired of running, tired of being alone, tired of missing what matters because I'm always chasing the next deal. His thumb traced her cheekbone gently. You made me want something different, something real. They kissed then, soft and sweet and full of promise. For the first time since that night on the terrace, Camila let herself hope that maybe this could work. But the universe had other plans. 3 days later, Camila received a call from her mother. Her father had collapsed at the restaurant. A heart attack. He was in the hospital, stable but serious. Ethan found her in the hospital waiting room, eyes red from crying. He didn't ask permission, just pulled her into his arms and held her while she sobbed. He's going to be okay, she whispered against his chest. The doctors say he'll recover, but Mom is terrified. I can't afford to close the restaurant, but she can't run it alone. What do you need? Ethan asked simply. I don't know. Everything feels like it's falling apart. Over the next few days, Ethan proved exactly who he was. He arranged for the best cardiac specialists to consult on her father's case. He organized a meal delivery service for Camila's mother. He even quietly paid several of the hospital bills, though he swore Camila to secrecy about it. Why are you doing all this? She asked one night. Because you need help. Because your family is important to you. Because this is what people do when they care about each other. It was during this crisis that Bianca reappeared. She came to the hospital with flowers and food, her expression cautious but concerned. I heard about your father, she said to Camila. I'm so sorry. How is he? Getting better. Thank you. Tears welled up again. I'm sorry I didn't call. I didn't think you'd want to hear from me. Of course I do. You're still my friend, Camila. Even when I'm angry, even when things are complicated, you're still my friend. They hugged, and something broke loose in Camila's chest. The weight she'd been carrying lightened slightly. When Ethan arrived later that evening, found Bianca and Camila talking quietly in the waiting room. He froze in the doorway, clearly uncertain of his welcome. "Hello, Bianca," he said carefully. "Ethan." Bianca studied him for a long moment. "Thank you for helping Camila's family." "That was kind of you. It was the right thing to do." The tension between siblings was still present, but something had shifted. A small crack in the wall between them. Over the following weeks, as Camila's father recovered, the three of them found a new rhythm. Bianca didn't fully embrace Camila and Ethan's relationship, but she stopped actively opposing it. See how happy they made each other? How Ethan was genuinely different with Camila? "I'm trying to understand," Bianca admitted one day over coffee. "I still worry, but I can see this matters to both of you." "It does," Camila said firmly. "And I promise I'm not giving up on our friendship. You're too important to me. Just be careful with your heart. That's all I ask." The real test came when Patricia and Richard Montgomery learned about the relationship. They invited Camila to a formal dinner, just the four of them. Camila was terrified. She wore her nicest dress and practiced what she would say, but nothing felt adequate. The dinner was cordial but tense. Patricia asked pointed questions about Camila's intentions. Richard wanted to know about her career plans, whether she expected financial support from Ethan. "I don't want anything from your family except respect," Camila said firmly when she'd had enough. "I'm with Ethan because I care about him, not because of your money or your name. I understand you're concerned, but I'm not going anywhere." Patricia's expression softened slightly. "You have courage. I appreciate that." "She has more than courage," Ethan said, reaching for Camila's hand. "She has integrity, intelligence, compassion. She makes me want to be better, and I love her." It was the first time he'd said it out loud. Camila's eyes filled with tears. "I love you too," she whispered. Patricia looked between them, seeing the genuine emotion there. "Well, this is certainly unexpected. But perhaps unexpected isn't always bad. It wasn't perfect acceptance, but it was a beginning." 6 months later, Camila stood in the conservatory where she and Ethan had first kissed. The room was filled with white flowers and soft candlelight. Bianca stood beside her as maid of honor, their friendship stronger for having weathered the storm. "You look beautiful," Bianca said, adjusting Camila's veil. "Are you ready?" "More ready than I've ever been for anything." When Camila walked down the aisle and saw Ethan waiting for her, tears streaming down his face, she knew every difficult moment had been worth it. Every sacrifice, every hard conversation, every risk. Because some love is worth fighting for. Some connections are worth the complications. Some people are worth choosing, again and again, no matter what obstacles stand in the way, as they exchanged vows in front of family and friends. Camila thought about that night at the gala. How a single moment, a single connection, had changed everything. How terrified she'd been of the complications, losing what mattered most. But she'd learned that real love doesn't ask you to choose between the people you care about. It finds a way to make room for everyone. It grows and adapts and overcomes. "I promise to choose you every day," Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. "Through every challenge, every complication, every moment of doubt. You are my home, Camila. You are my heart." "And you are mine," Camila replied, her own tears falling freely now. Today and always. When they kissed as husband and wife, the room erupted in applause. Bianca wiped her eyes. Patricia smiled genuinely for the first time since meeting Camila. And in that moment, surrounded by love and possibility, everything felt exactly as it should be. The journey from that chance encounter at a party to this moment had been complicated and messy and hard. But it had also been beautiful and transformative and real, because the best love stories aren't the simple ones. They're the ones where people choose each other despite the obstacles, where connection proves stronger than convention, where two hearts find a way to beat as one even when the whole world seems determined to keep them apart. And as Camila and Ethan walked back down the aisle together, hand in hand, facing their future with hope and determination, they knew their story was just beginning.